Young Deepwoken lore god checking in for your somewhat daily dose of Deepwoken lore. Today we'll be investigating the lore behind all three New World events, the Doom of Caranthil, the Interluminary Parasol, and the Carnival of Hearts. Surprisingly, each world event was added to the game with an abundance of lore. As this update is so new, I'm sure many of you haven't had a chance to dive into the lore behind each event, so here I am to do it for you. Remember to subscribe and like the video. Once we reach 3,000 subscribers, I get access to content creator privileges, which will make videos 100 times easier to make. It's a win-win for both of us. With that out the way, let's begin with haste. The first world event up today is the Doom of Caranthil. This boss, as I'm sure you've heard by now, was previously known in the community as the World Serpent. This is because the model was actually leaked by Agamatsu in a Deepwoken Unsolved video around 2 years ago. While we had no idea as to the purpose of the serpent then, we certainly know now. The serpent itself is essentially a gigantic, ugly fish with exceptionally large teeth. It's capable of tearing apart both boats and men alike. However, our first piece of lore comes into focus when you read into the serpent's name, the Doom of Caranthil. If you're as far into Deepwoken lore as I am, you'll recognize that Caranthil is not an established location within the lore. If the serpent is the Doom of Caranthil, that means that Caranthil was likely a city in the old world that drowned, just like Seltor. So how do we know that the serpent is capable of this? Well, in the notification for the serpent's world event, it says that we have to slay the serpent before it lays waste to the Luminant. The entire Luminant. If the serpent is capable of decimating an entire Luminant, then it could definitely sink an entire city. While I don't think that this is the Seltorian horror that rose from the sea and sank Seltor into the depths, it's possible that Seltor wasn't the only place that drowned. Let me explain. While the city of Seltor drowning created the city of the drowned in the depths' first layer, let's explain the other wreckage and ruins around the depths. These are clearly man-made structures that have decayed with time, so unless men have arrived into the depths and made random ruin-like structures, it's safe to assume that they drowned from the surface world. In that case, here's my theory. The Doom of Caranthil, the serpent, sank the small city of Caranthil while the much larger city of Seltor was drowning due to the Seltorian horror. It's very possible that there are many more sea beasts that drowned more small settlements, as ruins are spread across the entirety of the depth's first layer. Now, I'm writing this after the rest of the script has been completed, but this theory has actually just been confirmed by one of the drops from the Doom of Caranthil event. The weapon is called the Eye of Malice, and here's the description. Fashioned from the remnants of Caranthil's doom, the blade undulates like a living thing, lurching and clawing at your foes from afar. The submergence of the southern Luminant was not solely perpetrated by the horror that plunged Seltor into the depths below, but by countless other smaller tragedies drowned out by the vastness of calamity. Of these, the Leviathan known as the Doom of Caranthil is named for the land it too dragged below. In many respects, knowledge of Caranthil only persists within the lens of nightmares that consumed it. The culture, the food, the laughter, the in-jokes, the petty disputes, the fashions they styled themselves after. How can we experience these things if there's no one left to remember them? So that confirms my theory that Caranthil drowned alongside Seltor, but before we move on to the Parasol, here's the kicker. The Doom of Caranthil itself is gigantic, towering above the player and laying waste to everything in its wake. The health bar it sports is intimidating on its own. But if the Doom of Caranthil only managed to sink a small city, what about the Seltorian horror? Think about it, if we ever fight the Seltorian horror, it'll be larger than anything we've ever seen before. If the serpent is still alive after all this time, then you can bet that the Seltorian horror is still living too. It's somewhere below us, and perhaps one day it'll return. There's always a bigger fish, my friends. Now, the second world event we'll be discussing today is the Interluminary Parasol. The Parasol itself was initially teased by Punchy and Agamatsu about a year ago, when world events were first mentioned as a future update. While they couldn't provide us with a description then, we definitely know what it looks like now, and it's not pretty. The Parasol itself is a massive, hulking creature, resembling something like a fleshy, stony Gigamed. I hope you're happy, developers, we're getting Gigamed lore now. Fantastic. If I were to hazard a guess, this creature is likely related to the lowly Gigamed, either its ancient ancestor or a Gigamed mutated out of control by the powers of the Void Sea. There's no easy way to tell, and I doubt that either are true, but it doesn't hurt to give the people the Gigamed lore that they want. Moving on. We learn about the functioning of the Parasol through the description of one of the exclusive equipment pieces that it drops, the Parasol Planter. That planter's description is as follows. The remains of a parasol that have been relentlessly butchered in the name of fashion. Believed to migrate between the regions of the Void Sea, the sight of a parasol is more than enough to make many lose their lunch. It's thought that they act as a form of cross-pollinator for various creatures that make their way from the depths to Lumen, exchanging the traits and properties between them and dismantling ecosystems by injecting them into a competing niche. This makes sense. In fact, it was my initial theory when the leaks dropped. The name of the parasol itself is a massive hint. Interluminary clearly refers to something that can travel between luminants. As I clarified in my video on the Cataclysm, the luminants are divided between large sections of the Void Sea. Thus, if the parasol can travel between luminants, the Void Sea is likely its natural habitat. However, it's the second section of the description that has my theorist brain firing on all cylinders. If you're familiar with older videos on this channel, I uploaded a video on the lore behind megalodonts around 2 months ago, stating that megalodonts were likely the fusion of DNA between multiple different creatures. At the time, I figured that the depths had some sort of magical ability to fuse the DNA of creatures it absorbed, but now I think we have our culprit for the Sharko. The parasol is said to exchange the traits and properties between creatures that arise from the depths in an attempt to dismantle ecosystems. What ecosystems do we know of that have been dismantled? Bingo. Arisia. Arisia's Sharko Cave is the purest example of one of the parasol's experiments. Unless I'm going crazy and losing my marbles, this is like a clear parallel to the Sharko. The parasol may also have had a hand in creating other creatures like the pteropod, but that's unconfirmed yet. And don't forget that they're saying a parasol. There's more than one. There's probably like a billion of them floating in the Void Sea. So we've got a massive sea serpent that sunk a whole bloody city, and a gigantic floating fleshy jellyfish that swaps DNA between creatures like it's Dr. Jekyll. Sounds like Deepwoken lore. But wait, we've got one more world event to discuss. The third world event that's been recently added to the game is the Carnival of Hearts. Off the bat, the Carnival of Hearts is set apart from its other world event counterparts in that it's not a gigantic sea creature that will attack you unprompted. It's actually a large circus-like carnival, one that you can't just walk into. If you want to enter the Carnival of Hearts before the event begins, you'll have to find one of 2 NPCs found across the world when the event spawns. These 2 NPCs are Tillian and a familiar face, Alita. Yes, this event is the reason why the Alita event in Mini-Tirza has been bugged for so long. It turns out that Tillian is actually Alita's brother. Talk to either of them when you find them, and if you do it fast enough, you'll be able to participate in the Carnival of Hearts. Now, I promise I'm not joking when I say this, the carnival itself is the Deepwoken equivalent of the Squid Games, formed by Vision Shaper magic and whatever abilities Tillian can yield. Upon entrance into the carnival, you're forced to play games with your other contestants, ranging from hot potato to bomb throwing. If you survive, you'll be rewarded with a chest containing prizes for your victory. So why are Tillian and Alita holding this event? To capture your soul, to turn you into a mindless zombie slave. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm pretty sure that there's no ulterior motive, and that Tillian is the Mr. Beast of the Deepwoken world. Yes, we have a Deepwoken equivalent of Mr. Beast in the game, and you're partaking in Deepwoken's equivalent of the Beast games. That's the law. Christ. Oh, and one more thing. You may be questioning how Alita and Tillian are siblings, despite Alita being a Felinor and Tillian being, well, clearly not a Felinor. Well, it's the same reason that Deepwoken changed the name of races to aspects in a recent update to the game. Races in Deepwoken aren't actually races. They were formed during the first ever recorded vow in Deepwoken's history. In the book Vows by the Sea Inheritance, it's revealed that Deepwoken's quote-unquote races were actually created by the early people of Deepwoken, swearing allegiance to the sea in return for unique traits and unique appearances. Thus, 2 people can be related while having 2 completely different aspects, as it's not a race thing. It's simply traits created by the earliest vow that we know of. And that's all the lore behind these 3 world events. My next video will be covering the new oath, Satesworn, so make sure to watch that when it drops. It'll be a good one. Thank you for all the support. We're about to blast straight past the 2,000 subscriber milestone, and I couldn't be more grateful. It really makes all this theory crafting worth it. And with that, stay well, stay blessed, and I'll see you in the next video to discuss Satesworn.